Hello and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton Knave. We're doing all this King Crimson. Look, now the pile's now gone off the top of the screen, but we will get there eventually. Today we're doing the Beat Club 72. It's quite an important one, really. I mean, this was Collector's Club number 3, so it was a big deal when it came out. And it's one I've listened to an awful lot. Very early on, obviously. This is only our second live release of this era. And of course, importantly, it was actually filmed as well, so that's why it's quite significant. I believe the Improvisation wasn't released on DVD until, or Blu-ray, until the Larks Tongs box, I think, amazingly. And that's good to see. So obviously here we don't have that, we just have the audio. I think Jamie Muir's sense of humour comes through a little bit in this. But obviously you see the video and you'll see that to a certain extent in full force. But I think the band are quite subdued compared to other shows. Now, when I first got this, I assumed, well, it's early on and they're still building up and they're quite nervous. But compared to the shows around it, this is subdued. As it turns out, the shows around it were completely... It was recorded in the morning, though, to be fair, apparently. And that would explain a lot about what... Perhaps it lacks the energy of some other stuff. It's still great. I mean, Tapestry is one of my favourite improvs. I've always enjoyed it. I mean, you couldn't intellectually argue it's great in the same way of Stars and Bubble Black or something. I just like it. It's one of the ones I've listened to the most. It's interesting reading about how David Cross talks about the fear of improvisation, feeling he was going to get caught out, really. And there's a few looks of, you know, he's watching John Wetton to figure out what's going on. And in truth, none of them really knew what was going on. Maybe Jamie Muir knew what was going on, in that he'd been in so much improvisation before. So they were all winging it, and it's just one of those things, isn't it, when magic happened and etc. It has to be said that the Beat Club must have been the coolest TV show in the world, because it seems all the bands that wouldn't really go on TV played the Beat Club, and we get just a couple of tracks. It's never a full show, and it's well recorded, although we have those awful special effects in the background. They're very well recorded. So the Beat Club is so valuable for all those bands. Plus there's also Rock Palast, who actually they record whole concerts of bands that you don't have whole concerts by, so they're fantastic as well, and that's gone on for years and years and years. So yeah, track number 1 is the Improvisation, the rich tapestry of life. It is interesting how they decided to do, right, let's just do a really long improvisation instead of playing more songs. Maybe it was to warm up. Maybe it was to just give themselves a chance to wake up in the morning, because it was in the morning. It's not clear. But it starts with a big flourish and then there's the typical Wenton Bruford grooves going on. It's great. It never really goes fully avant-garde, so it's quite controlled in that sense. I assume it's of the live stuff, it's the one where you can hear the most, so you can hear the most of Jamie Muir. But I think he's quite restrained compared to what he was doing in other gigs, and he doesn't get up and run around like supposedly he did in the actual gigs. I just really like it. I think all King Crimson fans should hear that one. It's just a really nice, well recorded improvisation, nice and long. It did occur to me when I was thinking about reviewing this one that a publishing company owns the rights to the songs. I don't know, I think that's now changed, but at the time I think there was still what BMG or someone owned the publishing rights to the songs. But of course an improvisation, if DGM released an improvisation, King Crimson owned that. It's very clever. That's why the Collector's Club is a very clever thing. They can put these things with improvisations on them in a completely honest way. I mean, they could have split that half an hour thing up into 5 songs if they wanted to. Of course they didn't, it's one thing. That might be the reason for Larks Tongs 1 being called Improv, or Larks Improv, with the islands line up. So they get the publishing quite rightly. At the end of the improvisation, Jamie Muir empties a bag of leaves onto the floor. I looked forward to seeing that for years. Now I've seen it. We can't hear that on the here though. So yeah, get the Larks box if you want to see that. The title is named after a postcard Fripp got from Muir, all part of the rich tapestry of life. Sorry, kind of thing. And of course he was lied to. For years, the management didn't tell them why Jamie Muir really left. And they had this idea of him breaking his leg, couldn't play the next gig or something, and he'd actually left to join a monastery. Next track is Exiles. Exiles is fully formed. Exiles was fully formed on the first show, so it must have been one of the very first things they wrote. I think I read something about that somewhere. It's Cross's theme, obviously. I mean, I said the last live album, that was Wetton's lead singing debut, but this was his lead singing debut being recorded and transmitted, so that's quite a big deal. Although I'm not sure Exiles was actually transmitted, I think it was just Larks. Plus bands didn't really think like that they didn't think much of TV. I mean, they would go off and do a bit of TV and then right, we'll do the gig now. The gig was the big thing, because there's lots of people there, you know. But the thing is that these recordings, well, some of these recordings have been kept and that's their thing. And every time they're on TV now, that's what they show. I mean, even Live Aid for a lot. I mean, some slightly bland band, REO Speedwagon played Live Aid, and they were sort of saying, yeah, we'll see you tonight at the gig. We'll just do this first. There was that kind of vibe about it because it was Live Aid. There's more people seeing them than ever in their lives, so that was strange. But yeah, average version of Exiles. Then we have Larks, Tongues and Aspic Part 1. Interesting, they chose Part 1 and they didn't play Part 2. They actually had 2 shots at this, but the second shot was only ever released on the Larks box. I think this is the second attempt, and that was a pretty standard thing on Beat Club. They got them to have a good couple of shots at what they were doing, and they kept all these recordings, so brilliant. This is the one that gets played, as I said. There was the Prog Rock Top 10 on TV, on British TV, a few years ago, presented by Bill Bailey, so it was a bit condescending, but it was very entertaining, it was very funny. And when they played bits of Larks 1, interspersed with the bits of Hammer movie. I think maybe the Devil Rides Out, maybe. If I've got that wrong, let me know, because I can't remember what film it is. That's it. Thank you very much. See you next week for Guildford.